at the conference, I'll be doing it.
Uh,
Or Mary Alice will be doing it for them.
And your crew of your goon squad. All right, we are now recording.
Technical squad, please.
Internet elves.
Internet elves.
I like that.
All right, now
Would you rather gremlins?
No, keep
no
gremlins
gremlins,
away.
please.
If you have a way of keeping away gremlins, that would be a good thing to know how to. Hello, everyone. This is Chipicon, and this is the Changing Times, Changing Worlds Wednesday workshops. And I'm going to encourage you to come to the conference, where there will be lots and lots and lots of these in November. But meanwhile, we're having them every Wednesday night here. Tonight, our speaker is Starwolf, who has been speaking at Changing Times, Changing Worlds for 10 years now. And he is a shaman, a witch, a metaphysical soldier of fortune. And tonight he's teaching us essentially what is the defense against the black arts.
Yep.
The warding and hexing and all of those other things that we really need when the negative energy is coming around. So,
exactly.
we're going to turn this over to you, and we will ask questions as they pop up. But beginning, you give us the basics.
Okay. Basically, let me give you a little bit of my background. I've been a practicing witch for, 48 years now. I started back in the 70s, back when, well, a lot of what happens now in terms of, rule of three, you don't do this, you don't do that, didn't happen. The early to middle 70s, especially in New York City, which was the area I was not just a rough town physically, it was a rough town metaphysically. We had a bunch of groups all competing in what amounted to the magical equivalent of King of the Hill. So, I learned very quickly how basic defense, which is why I'm still here. These days, we don't play those games because we can flame each other on the internet and not waste the energy and not worry about snapback. So, to start with, one thing I've noticed in being in the metaphysical community for the last 40 plus years is there's not a lot of cross-training between various disciplines. Witches know how to, as it were, purify a space and ward it. Psychics don't necessarily do that. Spiritualists, I'm not quite sure what they work with, quite honestly. I only know one or two, and they're all out on the West Coast.
They usually pray.
Which should help. But what it boils down to is it's kind of like setting up to cook. First, you make sure your working area is clear. And for that, I like to say it, first you banish, then you ward. What that means is first you get rid of all the negative energies. And there's half a dozen ways to do that. I'll start with the simple ones. Easiest one, believe it or not, is a bell. You get your good old-fashioned school bell or a Tibetan ritual bell if you have one, or just a set of jingle bells if that's all you've got your hands on. You start at either the east or the north, depending on your tradition. I was brought up in what amounts to kind of a polymorphous, based vaguely on the English or British traditional witchcraft tradition, which comes out of ceremonial magic. So you start in the east, you invoke whatever power you deal with, either, a god, a spirit, an archangel. You shake your bell, then you transit counterclockwise, because when you're banishing, you always banish counterclockwise. Though I'm not sure what you do in Australia, quite honestly. We're going to have to find that out. Yeah. To the north, you repeat. Transit again to the west, shake your bell, call on whatever powers you are, and the best way you could say is banish from this area all powers, energies, and entities malevolent unto me and my work. And you do that at each quarter. You then go, oops, excuse me, we're having a slight technical difficulty here. There, where that should help a little bit better. You transit then to south, do the same, back, finish at the east, and then remember, you go back. If you started at the east, you finish at the east. You started at the north, you have to go back up to the north. You don't want to leave only 3/4 of the area banished. Then you go into the center and you really start shaking. Like the little old schoolmarm calling the kids. Bells work. You can dissolve salt into water. Among other things, salt dissolving into water releases a mild electrostatic charge as the salt decrystallizes, which assists in banishing the negative energy. You can smudge. The first one is usually referred to as smudging with sound. You can use a bell. Tibetan singing bowls or crystal bowls work well. I don't own a crystal bowl. I'm too much of a klutz. It would be very expensive quartz crystal fragments inside of a month. But, like I said, smoke, it doesn't have to be sage. I know there's a lot of people who are saying, no, don't use sage, it's over-harvested. I use culinary sage. I go to Ocean State Job Lot, Dollar Tree, Family Dollar, whatever discount store you have that has an herb section. I buy a bottle of powdered culinary sage, and I just empty that on top of my burning charcoal. That produces the smoke I need. I don't think I've ever actually used white sage, except one time when somebody gifted me a sage bundle when we first bought the house. That is the easiest way. You can also use juniper berries, but be careful, the smoke is vaguely hallucinogenic and mildly toxic. Yew berries will work as well, but they really get up into the toxic. There is no part of the yew tree that won't kill you. So burning a very few of those will go a very long way. It may also get rid of any spiders and creepy crawlies that are in your rafters too. You can also use thyme. I know in Central Asia, they burn thyme to smudge as opposed to using sage. You can also do a general cleansing by using, let's see, there's two things I use. The first and foremost is a substance called war water, which figures very heavily in my purification. I make the stuff by the half-gallon bottle. War water is real simple. You can either go to the occult store and buy what they say is war water, which for the most part, I'm not sure. Or you get yourself a large, clean jar. Old juice bottle will do. Mine is made in a bottle that used to hold orange juice that, oddly enough, I picked up at Harper's Retreat when they were pouring juice for the breakfast. I saw it, washed it out, took it home, and have been using it to make war water ever since. You need that. Like I said, you need clean water. Tap water will do. Distilled water will also do, in which case you don't need another bottle. You just use the bottle the distilled water came in. And then you will need nails, not galvanized. You will need plain steel or iron nails. The best ones are the square cut nails that you can buy at Home Depot, Lowe's, your Ace hardware store. And depending on the size of the container, you will either put 3, 6, or 3, 9, or 27 iron nails into the bottle. You will then cap said bottle, and you will wait. You will wait until the stuff starts to rust. What you will then do is you will basically, the nastier, more orange and rustier the water is, the better it works. Basically, what you are doing is you are creating a solution of iron oxide, and given that cold iron, is master of them all, to quote the poem, and seems to have been one of the human race's first real practical defenses against things, whether they be ghosties, ghoulies, members of the various fairy subspecies, um, negative energy pools. That stuff will basically short it out. It's the equivalent, basically, of something I did when I was in first grade, which was I accidentally poured water into our television. And as opposed to getting steam, basically the thing almost exploded. Boy, was I embarrassed. But that was back in the days when my father could unplug the TV, take the back off, pull out the tubes, go down to the hardware store and find out which ones I destroyed. I never did that again. But as certain people that I know who have a topical allergy to iron, it will basically short out the problems. It's also very good for objects that you might consider cursed. Dump them in that. I've got an extra bottle of it just in case Annabelle ever shows up here. That's one of the Warren's famous cursed dolls that seems to have gotten out of her case.
I heard that.
Yeah, well, she shows up here. She's going to get the rough equivalent of Exorcist in a drum. That is the first liquid you can use. Another one you can use, if you don't mind the odor of vinegar and garlic, is Four Thieves vinegar. Once again, you can go to the occult store and you can buy for $8 to $10 a bottle marked Four Thieves vinegar. What you're going to get is a bottle of white vinegar that's had blue food coloring put in it. Four Thieves vinegar can be made. Once again, you require a large bottle, cider vinegar, and you will need, in my case, I used rue berries, garlic, what were the other? Lavender blossoms, and rosemary. Put good portions of all four into your bottle and fill it with cider vinegar. It does not have to be 100% organic with the mother culture in the bottom. The stuff you can buy at Stop and Shop or Piggly Wiggly or Kroger's or just about any other large grocery store will work. And you fill the bottle, you cap it. And this one will take time because it takes roughly 28 days. Every day, you go to wherever it is, you make sure the bottle is capped tightly, and you shake it. And as you are doing it, you say, evil may come, but it will not stay. My Four Thieves vinegar drives evil away. And you do that for one full cycle of the moon, starting at whatever phase it's in. All right, now it's, for example, if you start it tonight, it's at the full moon. You do it for 28 days, ending at the next full moon. If you start it at the dark moon, you will do 28 days, ending at the next dark moon. Relatively simple, relatively easy to make, and not only is it good for exorcisms, if you mix it with olive oil, it makes an excellent salad dressing. Suddenly feeling like I'm in the middle of an old-fashioned TV commercial for, it's a cleaning product, it's a salad, it's an exorcism tool, it's a salad dressing. Other items you can use, moon water. Moon water is a staple. That once again takes time to make. And if you want to, this is a good time to start it because for banishing things, full moon water works very well. And you don't actually have to have the moon visible, which is good because here in Connecticut right now, we are totally overcast and rainy. You take once again, a clear bottle. You fill it with water. You place a quartz crystal in the back. Yes, somebody has a question?
Thank you. Sorry.
You're gonna have to unmute so I can hear you. What is it?
Can you hear me? Or
Yes, I can.
okay. Okay. That's probably better. Okay. Well, is it better now?
Yep, good enough.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry. Awesome info. High speed. Two things. One, did you say rhueberry with an R or a blueberry with a B?
RUE.
Thank you. That's one. Two, evil may come, however, it will not stay. What's the next part?
What?
Evil.
Evil may come, but it will not stay. My 4 thieves vinegar drives evil away. And yes, I appropriate from just about every magical tradition I've run into, simply because as one of my first teachers, the teacher of one of my first teachers said, a good witch is eclectic, will steal from anybody.
Hacker, shaman,
Magical traditions are like magpies. If it's shiny and pretty, we'll probably leave something shiny and pretty behind. But getting back to the moon water, you place a quartz crystal in the bottle, you fill it with water, you leave it on either this time of year you could put it outside, or you could leave it on your windowsill where it'll be exposed to moonlight. And best idea is to cover it over during the day so that the sunlight doesn't kind of discharge it. Do that for the 3 nights of the full moon. Regular artificial light won't affect it, by the way, so you can bring it in the house when you're done. Stick it someplace where it's not going to get exposed to direct sunlight, and when you need it, fill a spray bottle with it, and if you feel the need to banish, spritz, 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 spritz. Another one that oddly enough works is something I call dark moon water. For that one, you'll need the same glass jar, but you'll need a smoky quartz crystal in addition to the clear quartz. Leave it in for the 3 nights of the new moon. Once again, don't let it get exposed to sunlight. It's kind of like exposing an undeveloped piece of film. It will just kind of get rid of it. Once again, spritz. Something I'm experimenting with is making sun water. Basically, water, clear quartz crystal, and a piece of sunstone. Basically, whenever possible, I put it outside at high noon on a sunny day to charge. I'm not sure how long the stuff will stay the charge. The crystals are in there basically to act as capacitors, so that the energy doesn't just kind of dissipate. Okay, those are the various liquids. Other things, if you are from a Christian magical tradition, holy water. It's harder to get these days unless you actually know a priest, because they no longer leave the fonts at the front of the church filled except when the church is actually in use. So it's not like you can walk up and dip a vial out, cross yourself, and leave. Which is unfortunate, but it is the world we live in. Also the fact that a lot of churches are locked up except when they are holding a service or immediately before and after. Once again, it's the world we live in today. So, once you have gotten banished, what do you do? Well, warding, temporary wards are easy. Start at the east, go clockwise. At each cardinal point, you invoke whatever power or deity. It's not much different than casting a magic circle. The main problem with that is the moment something crosses it, other than a child under the age of 6, your dog or a cat, so basically any adults, it's going to basically take the circle down. That's only a temporary measure. To permanently ward an area, whether it's your house, your work area or not, you're going to have to start putting in permanent wards. This house is warded and protected in multiple levels, starting inside. I'll give you the when we bought our house story. Basically, once we bought our house, my wife, Kathy, ran off to find a locksmith, because first thing you do when you buy a house is you change the locks, because you don't know who the previous owner has given keys to. So while she was finding a locksmith, I started in the basement. I started at, thankfully, in our house, it's mostly on the cardinal points. So I started at the, what amounted to northeast corner. Placed a quartz crystal there, up where the foundation met the, sorry, I'll pick this up and maybe that'll make it easier to hear. Where the foundation met the actual house, I believe that's called the footing. Placed a quartz crystal there, cast the first watchtower, aiming it into the quartz crystal, moved clockwise down to the southeast corner, did the same, southwest corner, finally northwest corner, going back to the northeast. Once I discovered that we were no longer quite on the cardinal points, I shifted everything so that they would actually be at north, south, east, west. That's about halfway in each wall of the basement. Did the same thing outside. Thankfully, back then we had a gravel driveway, so I could just dig a hole, drop the crystal in. Now for those, I didn't just use a quartz crystal. I used quartz crystals that had pyrite inclusions. Once again, pyrite is basically crystalline iron sulfide. That is a fancy way of saying, yes, I put in iron. The final one, which was at the cardinal points of our property, those were a little bit different. Those I bargained with a business associate of mine, basically Mother Shark, to get the assistance of a couple of her spirit children. And basically, using old-fashioned troll dolls, to which I tied a shark tooth and a small quartz crystal, I made 4 little, what amounted to fetishes, which have been buried at the 4 cardinal points of our property. And if you look at our house with eyes other than the ones dealing with the material world, you'll see 4, the best way to describe them is nasty-looking purple-skinned shark-toothed dwarves standing there waiting for things to arrive. To say the least, I'm a firm believer in defense in depth. I also, by the way, did cleansing and warding on the first floor and the attic. Basically driving everything up and out the roof. Didn't do anything on the roof. I'm afraid of heights and didn't feel like climbing. So basically the things left in the corners of the attic will have to do. So basically this house is defended in depth. If you were living in an apartment and you have people above and below, you may want to both ward also the floor and the ceiling. Simply because you don't know what's coming in. That way you create a bubble. And as far as permanent wards, you may have to tape whatever you're using to the ceiling and hopefully put the ones on the floor under a piece of furniture, and then furniture you're not going to move, and remember, do not vacuum under it. Okay, now you are defended. And we still have almost half an hour. So, any more questions, please? That's basic.
Please cover defending yourself, because you're not always in your house.
Okay. Let's start with the simplest way.
Before you
jewelry.
Go, a question about earlier stuff.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah, let's go back to the questions.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, love the stuff, defense in depth, hacker too, so I get that. You started your quartz crystal in the northeast section and then went clockwise. And you mentioned that you did it in the northwest, southwest. So in this warding, do you do the in-between points, northeast, northwest, or is it better to do it in northwest, southwest, east, so on?
What I did was when I checked the compass, I said, oops, unwound the circle and moved it.
Gotcha. So it's better to be aligned with 4, right?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's what happened. That's what happens when you don't bring a compass with you when you're buying a house.
Yeah. I also had a problem with compasses sometimes go wacky on the fly. So like, it is what it is.
I've never had that problem. And remember, I use a physical compass. I don't use that GPS compass you get in your cell phone.
Yeah, me too.
Those things can be disrupted by the wobble of the satellite.
Makes sense. War water was the water plus the nails in. Was that war water?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's called war water.
All right.
That's an old, basically Mississippi Delta hoodoo, Mississippi voodoo, New Orleans voodoo tradition banishing tool.
Okay.
Just don't use it on anything that can stain because it's rust.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's see. To go back to earlier, you mentioned okay. So early on, first banish, then clear. You mentioned basically go in the quarters, banish, 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 banish. Go to and each time invoking patron, deity, celestials, whatever you got.
Right.
And
Exactly.
Then go in the center. Is that way clear, or do you banish from the center and then do clearing?
Okay. You banish. Start in the center. Move to the whichever place you start according to your tradition. I know, for example, Jane's tradition is north. They start in the north. I grew up with a more Wiccan or witchcraft style tradition. I start in the east. In Australia, I'm not sure. Because that's, after all, that is the land where the toilets flush in the other direction, theoretically. So usually what happens is when I'm casting, at the center, it's as above, so below, as within, so without, the circle is cast. That's how I learned it. Ages, and ages ago. And I think I learned that one actually from Herman Slater, which says how long ago that was.
Okay, I'm still a bit confused. Like, you go around, that banishes, then you go in the center and you cast a circle. But way in the beginning... Sorry.
Yeah, it's like casting a magic circle. You start at your cardinal point, you do the clock, you banish clockwise like you were unrolling a circle at the end of a ceremony.
Well, I thought I said banish counterclockwise and then create circle clockwise.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm dyslexic.
No worries. So, okay, so you banish counterclockwise, then cast a circle clockwise, come to the center. But way in the beginning,
whatever you do at the center of the circle normally.
Okay. When you said in the beginning, to make sure I understand the organization, you said basically like any same cook, clean space, first you banish, then you clear.
Yep.
In the circles that you mentioned, banishing is counterclockwise. When you cast a circle, is that what you refer to as clearing?
No, the clearing is the banishing part.
Okay, I was confused.
You can also, if you want to symbolically, sweep with a broom. That's another old concept.
Okay.
I would keep a separate broom for that kind of banishing other than the one you actually use to sweep the floor.
Yeah, I was confused when you said first banish, then clear as two separate things. So that's why I was confused. Thank you.
Yeah, first banish, what I should have said is first banish, then cast. It's been a very, very long day.
Starwolf, can I offer an analogy? The way I think of it is when you're healing, if you've hurt something, the first thing you do is you clean the wound.
Yep.
Then you treat the wound. That's when you put on your herbs, and then you cover it to protect it. And so that's 3 stages that I look. But the first thing you do is first you take the nail out, or the dirt, or whatever.
Then you flush it with alcohol and peroxide.
And then you put the bandage to keep everything out once it's. So I see this as equivalent.
Yes, there is. Now back to personal protection. I wear a lot of it. I'm not going to haul the whole mass out. And
I'm sorry. How long do these barriers last?
Until you take them down.
You're permanent, yeah. Makes sense.
I put mine in close to 30 years ago. They're still strong. It may help if you want to once a year, especially if you are warding your property. You might want to go and check the ones that are at the corners of your property, simply because, well, that's an old custom called beating the bounds.
Yeah.
When the lord of the land would basically go to the edge of his land, meet his neighbors, and they would kind of trade off, going to one in the east, then going to the one in the south, and going to the one in the west, establishing their boundaries, if that makes sense. So beat your bounds once a year. Ours have gotten a little bit harder because the back of the yard has turned into sort of a nature preserve, and we have all sorts of wild roses and bittersweet vines up there. Excuse me. So, has that helped? Good. So back to personal protect.
I was going to say, if you have a spiritual practice where you celebrate holidays and you've got one that's somewhat light, then throw beating the bounds into it.
Yeah, Beltane's a good one for that. Beltane, or this, depending on what the weather is like where you are. Midsummer is also a good one. Excuse me, my brain is mush, so I'm doing the best I can. So back to personal protection. Jewelry. Jewelry is the best way to do it. There's the obvious one. If you're a witch, you wear a pentacle. If you're some form of heathen, you'll wear a Thor's hammer. Or if you're like me, you wear a pentacle, a Thor's hammer, and a Valknot, because, well, that's the sort of person I am. There are also gems or jewelry you can wear. One of the best ways to deal with negative energy coming into you is amber and jet mixed together. And that's as simple as going to a store that sells amber. You can buy beads buying amber beads and jet beads and stringing yourself a necklace of alternating amber and jet beads. That will actually soak up the negative energy, transform it into positive energy, and feed it into you. So it is literally, the harder they hit you, the stronger you get. I'm always big with something that uses your opponent's energy against him, or her, or it.
Make sure it's a reputable store. I have met people who sell crystals who do not know the difference between jet and onyx, and that's very irritating. Because
once you pick them up, you will understand the difference, because jet, being an organic material, has a warm feeling. Onyx feels cold. If you pick it up and it's shiny and cold, it's either onyx or hematite. If you pick it up and it feels warm, it's most likely jet. Plus, jet tends to often have a matte finish it'll take on a matte finish after you've worn it for a few weeks. One thing you do have to remember, when you are buying amber, make sure you're actually buying amber and not amber-colored plastic, because there have been times when I have gotten a really good deal on some amber beads, taken it home, heated up a needle, put the needle against one of the beads, and gotten the smell of polystyrene. Because it's real easy to create amber plastic. Obviously, if it has beetles in it, or bug bits, or bits of tree, it's the genuine article. But you also don't need huge honkin' beads. Basically, 5mm or 7mm will be fine. That will create a perfectly wearable necklace that you can wear every day outside if you're a woman, or under your shirt if you're a man. That way you don't give away that you're wearing this stuff. Other stones you can wear for protection, pretty much any black stone will do. So onyx will work, black onyx anyway. Hematite will work. Once again, you got to make sure you have the real thing and not hematite that's been created by taking hematite chips and dust and compressing it under pressure in a press with a resin to hold it together. That's the stuff they use to make those black magnetic clackers that get popular every 5 or 10 years. That's artificial hematite. It's been magnetized. It will work very well. The problem is when artificial hematite absorbs too much negative energy, it tends to shatter. Indeed, if you are wearing hematite and it breaks, it usually means something nasty just happened. And either that, or if you're wearing it as a ring, you brought your hand down too hard on the desk and you broke it that way. But if you're just wearing, say, a necklace of hematite beads and they start shattering, somebody's taking a poke at you, magically or metaphysically or energetically. Or it could have just been somebody who had a really bad day and is a really projective psychic and doesn't know what they're doing. So, jewelry, like I said, other good ones are black tourmaline, also known as schorl. I think I pronounced it right. It's one of the most common black stones. It has an advantage that it does not need to be cleansed. It's a self-cleansing stone. So if you have things you wear that are protective and you feel that they have gotten too, basically they've protected you too much and you want to give them a rest, put them on some pieces of black tourmaline and let them sit overnight. It'll soak up the energy and it'll be nice, bright, shiny, and new again. Other materials that will work. There is, of course, salt. I know, for example, salt lamps. We've got one here in the office that's not turned on at the moment, but is quite useful. That will put out a nice stream of negative ions when salt is heated that will help keep you healthy. It'll fill the air with negative ions. Indeed, getting a negative ion generator, once you have your space warded, will help keep it energetically, I think of the word, energetically healthy and fresh. Think of it as Febreze for your energy. Now you have to you laugh, but you also have to make sure that you're getting a negative ion generator and not an ozone generator. Ozone generators are great. The air they put out smells nice. It smells like a beautiful, sunny, cool June day. The problem with ozone is it is a highly reactive form of oxygen and it will burn the mucous membranes of your sinuses, your windpipe, and your lungs. Which means if you have any kind of a breathing condition, it will make it worse in long term. Ozone's great for a few seconds, but long term it will hurt you. And it's real easy because I've seen at New Age fairs plenty of people selling air purifiers that turn out to be ozone generators. We had one and Kathy's asthma got worse. Simply because ozone is a unique oxygen molecule that has one extra very loosely attached atom of oxygen, and when it runs into organic material, that oxygen atom comes loose and it effectively oxidizes whatever it touches. Rapid oxidation we call fire. Other oxidation we call rust, and you don't necessarily want to rust the inside of your lungs. So, let's see. We still have any more questions, by the way?
I'm going to comment that that's not unlike what Febreze does. It's not making the smell go away. What it does is it deadens your ability to smell. So
yeah. We have a bunch of little negative ion generators. We've got one in every room, simply because one large enough to deal with the house would be just too big and too clumsy. But we're very careful to make sure that they say negative ion generators. I've also got one that I keep in my travel bags for when we're at a hotel. I just plug it into a plug while we're there, and it helps. One of the things, get rid of the hotel room funk.
Question.
Not as. Yes.
His question first.
Yes.
Sorry, forgive me for interrupting. I didn't want to stop you when you were, but I have a question after you finish with that thought.
Okay, go.
Okay. Two things. One, could you use a negative ion generator in the house next to your main HVAC unit inside to send it through all the vents? Would that be useful?
It depends. The problem is the electric motor in the HVAC unit puts out positive ions. And when positive ions meet negative ions, they cancel each other out.
Okay. So
basically, if you've ever run an electric drill, that smell you get when an electric motor is running and the spark is going between the bushings on the frame of the motor and the bushings on the coil, that's ozone. So what will happen is if you pump it through your HVAC, unless it's one of the ones where the motor is isolated from the ductwork, they're going to cancel each other out.
Okay.
The only thing it'll really do is settle the dust on whatever filter it goes in through.
Okay. Second question.
Okay.
When this idea by you, war water, iron oxide, takes care of stuff.
Yep.
So
powdered iron is also very good. Iron filings.
Okay, going with that, the question I had was the idea that, again, cyber shaman and hacker, I take science and I take magic and I blend. So
do I. Welcome to the club.
Yep, I figured. So I want your perspective on this. Silver, mythologically good for taking care of monsters, nasties, and other stuff like that. Found out at the microbiological level, silver particles, silver ion type things, actually good for biological stuff as well, and that's probably where it came to kill monsters and so on and so forth. So making a silver solution, what's your opinion on
like colloidal silver?
Yes.
That would work. That would work fine. I tend to leave out things like silver because they're expensive. They're sometimes hard to obtain. The good news is if you're making something like what I refer to as my Hexbreaker powder, which is sea salt, powdered iron, rosemary, and garlic powder all ground together. I have a couple of old silver dimes that I take a file and I file a little bit of powdered silver into them, working on the homeopathic effect that the more you dilute it, the stronger it gets. That's a powder I carry.
Hexbreaker, what ingredients again? Sorry, just fast. Rosemary, garlic, powdered silver, and what else?
Let's see, rosemary, garlic, powdered silver, powdered iron, and sea salt. Though my first batch was made with table salt. Whatever basically you have available. Oh, and to answer can you start it with rusty nails? I don't see why not. Just make sure you've washed them off so there's no dirt on them. Because a lot of times for me, rusty nails are things that I pulled out of the ground or out of an old pallet at work. So just make sure they're clean rusty nails.
So you said that diluted is stronger at work. The more diluted it is, the stronger it is. Can you clarify?
Okay. Are you familiar with the concept of homeopathy?
I might be, a little bit, depends.
The idea of homeopathic remedies are that you take, for example, if you're dealing with a fever, you take something that causes the body to heat up, like arnica. Because if you drink arnica tea, your body will basically overheat, because arnica is great topically, but taken internally, it shorts out your body's thermostat, and you basically run a fever that'll probably kill you. But if you take, say, 1 ounce of arnica to 10 ounces of water, you powder the arnica, you mix it with 10 ounces of water, you shake it and shake it and shake it. You then take 1 ounce of that solution, add it to another 10 ounces of water, shake, 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 and you keep going until you've diluted it 200 or 300 times, which is why if you look in a place that sells homeopathics, you will see, say, 30C. That means it has been, the substance in there has been diluted basically 3,000 times. If you see 30M, it has been 30,000 times. And if you see X, that's 10. They use the Roman numerals. This was invented back in the 18th century by a man named Hahnemann. A lot of people say homeopathy is hooey. I've gotten some very good results with it. Basically, I've got over 200 years of proven, even though the AMA and the FDA refuses to recognize homeopathic remedies. The AMA because anybody can do homeopathy, basic stuff, and the FDA because Big Pharma can't patent it. It's been around so long that it's bloody, trying to think of the right term, it's basically in common knowledge.
So with Hexbreaker, you want to
It
do
also cannot be proven. One of the problems with American medicine is the first level of testing is they have to find the F50, which is what is the dose at which 50% of the patients given it die. And they like to stop just before that. That's the first thing they test for. You cannot go on to the second level of testing to find out if it's safe, and then the third to find out if it's effective, if you can't find out at what point does it become dangerous.
Check Hahnemann's Materia Medica. He figured that out back in the 18th century.
But
the hard way, by killing patients.
But Americans just don't want to try anything until they know that if you cannot prove, if you cannot find out a level at which it'll kill you, you can't go on to the second level of testing. If you can't test it, you can't sell it. So that's why a lot of safe things don't come out in American medicine.
So back to Hexbreaker. You said basically you want to dilute the Hexbreaker 10 or 100. And
No, I was using that as an analogy. Basically, I put a little bit of powdered silver in. Usually when I make it up by about a quart at a time. Basically, I mix everything together in the big mortar. I bought it in the Spanish grocery. It's a big recycled plastic mortar that I can then sterilize with boiling water if I need to. And grind everything to a powder, and I scrape a little bit of silver off the dimes and grind it in there, and then I have the stuff. I usually have at least a small vial of it with me whenever I'm at an event, just in case.
So I'm confused, but why did you mention diluting when it came to the Hexbreaker stuff? Like,
because that way I was using it as an analogy for the small amount of silver. You do not need a huge amount.
Okay, thank you.
A little bit of silver goes a very long way when it's powdered and mixed with other substances.
So just like iron and just like salt, it goes a long way?
Yeah, the base I use is salt and powdered iron. The two good old-fashioned remedies against anything in the dark. The other two, obviously, rosemary is good for getting rid of ghosts. Garlic is, I believe, the European Middle Ages cure for everything. So this thing will basically handle ghosts, vampires, members of the Fae community, just about anything you might be throwing it at. And the fact that iron will short out just about anything it touches magically, unless you know what you're doing. It's the shotgun effect.
Fair enough. So here's an important question. What if you work a lot with the Fae or have Fae blood, and also kind of like they're your kin, and I don't want to then
I wouldn't carry that stuff. Or if you want, leave out the powdered iron and just use salt, silver, and herbs.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you don't want to tick off your allies.
Exactly. Other ways. Now, I mentioned smudging before. I live with an asthmatic.
I want to take you back to what you were saying about the hotel room.
Yeah.
Things for when you're traveling. Is there anything more than what you already said about when you're traveling and how you carry your protective area around with you?
Well, I have what I refer to as my portable altar, which I set up when we're in a hotel room. Basically, it is I started out with one of those aluminum wallets that you can buy these days at dollar stores or at Ocean State Job Lot for $3. You start by, you buy one, you find a color you like, mine is blue. You tear out the plastic accordion bit. It's only held in place by a little bit of tape. And you now have a nice crush-proof container. In mine are a pair of charms that I bought from Cabochons, oddly enough. Little bronze charms, one of Freya and one of Odin or Wotan or grandfather. I have an Urmstuhl or an Urm charm. That forms the main altar area. I also have a rune ring that I place a piece of fire quartz in the middle for as it were, the altar fire. And then I have 4 of the little wooden candle holders you buy at a craft store to put birthday candles in. Only instead of birthday candles, they contain little quartz crystal points. I've got 6 of them in there. The two that go on either side of the deity images are dyed a wonderful shade of purple. I bought them at a rock shop about 20 miles from here. The other 4 are just plain, what they sometimes call gem points, that have been put into these little containers, shimmed with a bit of cardboard, and then I dropped some glue in there to make sure everything would stay together. And I put one at as close to the cardinal points of the room as I can, and I have the rough equivalent of casting a semi-permanent circle. It's up until I take it down, and that will ward the room. Plus, I've got Odin and Freya watching out for me. You know, they are kind of family. Goodness knows, I look just like the old bastard.
Okay, next thing, sometimes there are witch wars, or at least people get annoyed with you. There's such a thing as the evil eye, which is not necessarily something people do on purpose. But
yeah, you can.
But you can overlook somebody simply if you hate somebody strong enough. Staring at them can get through some defense. Yeah. How do you
can be
against okay, if you've got somebody or something doing an actual attack, what's the best defenses?
Well, let's see. Aside from whatever protective jewelry you normally wear, if you think somebody's actually doing that, get a pendant with what they call an evil eye bead, or wear a bracelet with a bunch of them in there. You can buy those at a lot of import stores. They're easy to spot. They're blue beads with usually a white circle in the middle with a black center. They look like eyes. That's what they're designed for. They're designed for keeping away the evil eye, the maledicta. And of course, if you know somebody is actively casting the evil eye on you, see this? This is the old Mediterranean way of keeping away the evil eye. You'll notice I'm doing it with my left hand. Toy! Your old Sicilian grandmother will recognize that move. Or in fact, anybody who's got family from Italy. So we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left.
So when we said that, basically, is it left hand, or is it simply a matter of being the non-dominant hand because neurological?
This has more to do with it's the left hand. It's the sign of the horns. You can also buy pendants that are made like that. Just don't get one that's like this.
Okay, so
that's actually a good old. You can also find them like this. It's a fraternity symbol. It's also a protective symbol. It is literally screw you.
Okay, so you don't want one with the thumb in the middle. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the satanic sign of the horns.
All right.
They use that for blessing. So I don't think that would necessarily work against the evil eye.
Okay, so basically, but this with the left hand. My
Yeah.
theory is that it's just because it's a non-dominant hand as opposed to being right or left. So it depends on your neurological. Like, so people who are
Well,
left-handed, I wonder if they need to use right hand instead. You know?
in my case, it's because I have been in circles for over 40 years, and I've had so much energy run in my left hand and out, or in my right hand and out my left. I've kind of polarized. I'm like a diode. Stuff comes in for me from the right and goes out from the left.
Okay, so your sending hand then is what you would. Got it.
Yeah, basically. If you send with your right, use your right hand. I send with my left, especially when I'm trying to send something back at somebody.
Are there any other questions? Okay, wait a minute.
Yes.
We got one in the chat. Can you
Okay.
use Rusty Nails to start the war water to get? Can you?
I
Rusty
answered
Nails-
that already. Yes, you can.
Okay, just checking the chat before we close up.
She said she pulled them out of an old building. Those will be perfect. It will jumpstart it, and in an emergency, scrape it, mix it with some water, and throw it at your problem.
Well, that was good. It is now 9, so we're going to come off. I'm going to take a moment to tell everybody that tell your friends about this Wednesday night show, and tell your friends about Changing Times, Changing Worlds. The name comes from, we want to change the world to make the fact that people are psychic. Magic is real. Deal with it.
Yes, with the program.
Yeah, well, can we please just stop pretending? Everything's going to be so much easier when we stop pretending. The conference is November 9th through the 15th. This year, because it is virtual, we are doing 3 classes or two classes on Monday through Wednesday. I mean, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, classes and panels all day. And this is all about everything supernatural, paranormal, occult, metaphysical. We do alternate healing, we do magic, we do psychic stuff, we do divination, all kinds of things. We talk shop. It's a wonderful place to come and talk with other people about the stuff that you're wondering about, or maybe you believe in and use all the time. And, you know, it's not so much, gee, how does it work? But, okay, how do I do it better? Lovely to be able to get together with people, do that. And there may be people out there that may not be interested in everything, but they may be crazy for the healing, or they may be very excited about the divination. So tell your friends, because in my experience, just about everybody really has some interest in this. So that is it. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank Starwolf for his—
You're welcome. Once I actually was able to get into Zoom, it worked very well.
And that's going to be it for this show. And we're going to try and get these up on YouTube so you can look at them the rest of the time.
And see you again, same bat time, same bat channel.